So it's really a great pleasure to be part of the team again this year, and to reflect on the work that all of you are doing right now in the space of education. So just allow me to bring up my PowerPoint. Yes, there it is. Okay. Yeah. Yes, so we are calling it Beyond Synchronous and Asynchronous dichotomy in the current education discourse. I decided to take up this particular subject matter because it's something that is so much in use as a currency in the educational discourse. And I'm not exactly sure whether it has to be the center of our educational discourse as we try to navigate the possibilities and options that are available, including what Moodlemoot has brought to us in terms of making technology accessible and making platforms accessible to educators and students alike. So I'll begin by expressly describing who I am. I'm an OBE practitioner. And so the perspective that I bring to the conversation, because most of you are designers, you are designing instruction, you are trying to deliver using all the best platforms we have that are not so costly, but at the same time, they enable us to overcome the challenge of digital divide that has been always a subject matter around the world in terms of how do we make the possibility of every single child and every teacher to use these possibilities in order to make education so accessible and easy to manage. So that's quite a lot of great job that we are doing. So I have an unwavering faith in OBE as a best philosophy or pathway to transforming education. I've always looked at education very much in recent years, in the past many years, decades, has the tendency to exclude. So it has been an educational system where we have tended to exclude. Basically, we do everything we can to remove some people from the educational system because we call them that they are not smart enough. And so, or maybe they are not educable. So we try to find ways to simply cater to those who are really like gifted, so to speak. We also have the idea that education has to be considered a socialization framework. It's through education that we come to understand our roles in society, our place in society. And it's through educational system in modern history that we come to understand much of our cultural space and how to participate in it. Now, that is the one side of the equation, but at the same time, we have forgotten to try to listen to the people undergoing education. What about the student? What do students bring to the educational space, to the learning space? What I think about all the time is actually to consider learners as people who bring something to the school system. They bring knowledge, they bring skills. Therefore, education is not just a giving system, it's also a receiving system. If education stops learning, we become ignorant. No matter how smart we may think we are, but we become ignorant. So the learners are not passive people who come to receive information, but they come to school to expand our consciousness, to expand the educational curriculum, to expand things that we try to do and realize in the school system. Therefore, the idea that we have to be thinking about education as something that also needs to be transformed and agently solved in the name of resocialization and reacculturation system. So our calling in the school, in the educational space, is really to unleash and to realize our full human potential. When we believe that every person who comes to school has something, and that they are endowed with a lot of beauty and intelligence and wisdom and creativity and innovation, and we allow the school system to be that space where they can explore who they can fully be and realize themselves. it's been reflecting a lot about this. If you look at much of what's happening, many big ideas that are happening in the world that are shaping our society, it's unfortunate to say that majority of them are taking place outside of the school system. So people have to graduate before they can think creatively. People have to get out of the school before they can innovate, because the school system doesn't allow you to innovate. All it tells you is listen, take your notes, and take the quizzes. And so whether we are doing that in an explicit way, there's a lot of that in the implicit sense. And that's the idea that I would like to speak to, because the beauty of this community here is that all of you are designers and people who are trying hard to reach out to the learners. And some of you are learners, students, who are trying to expand opportunity to understanding, to expand your skills, your sets of abilities, and everything else. So it's important to keep this in mind. So a focus on outcomes means that all the inputs, the processes, and outputs are flexible resources. In other words, whether a student has access to a platform or not, whether they are using a module, whatever it is, that's secondary. If the focus of learning, of getting to educate a human being, is really about the outcomes, meaning to say what a person is able to become based on everything that has been endowed in him or her by the creator, then education just becomes a place where we get activated, and everything else are more like flexible resources. So our mission today, really, I would like to speak to the idea of talking a little bit about how our current system is shaping up a discourse about synchronous and asynchronous in a sense that is making like potential explanations to what is working and what is not working. When as a matter of fact, synchronous or asynchronous, at the end of the day, we are running schools, we are operating schools in order to facilitate the education of the humans. It's about the outcomes, it's about what human beings become. And whether, you know, people are successful or not, it's not something to be determined by the question of synchronous or asynchronous. Okay. I'll also speak quickly on the element of how the same mindset seems to be corrupting our culture of research, where much of the research happening in the school systems, as fallen short of really meeting the criteria for this powerful resource that is there to transform society, to make our life better, you know, to innovate, to create. The school research has tended to be so much about taking surveys, you know, stuff that, you know, there's no value at all. So in other words, much of the academic researches we are seeing in our schools and universities actually has no value in terms of how it can contribute to the improvement of our society. Everything about education is about the transformation of humanity. It's about the transformation of the environment. It's about making us better humans and making us contribute to our societies, to our communities. And that's where these two things are tied together. So when we think about designing in a way that we are targeting building people and transforming people in whatever platform and system we are using, front-loading curriculum tells us that we need to be conscious of what exactly we want to happen, and then we design backwards. And so in this reflection, therefore, the role of chronos, or time in teaching and learning, becomes something that is completely flexible if we front load, because front loading means we put forward first that which we want to realize, that which we want to accomplish through the educational process. Attending classes or accessing the materials and resources is just a means, it's not an end. Those materials may work for one, may not work for another person. But what matters at the end of the day is, are we really getting our society where it's supposed to be in terms of our politics, in terms of our economics, in terms of our technologies, in terms of our social lives and rich cultural experience. It's about all of these things. So why we have to center our design process, instructional design processes on outcomes, it's because learning outcomes indeed are centerpiece of our design. They enable everything we do. Sometimes we get frustrated. Oh my gosh, the technology has given me some problems. Maybe something's not working quite well. The truth is, if we are clear with the outcomes, anything that we are going to design and make available through the platforms that are accessible and available to our students can actually lead us to successful learning. We are going to have a society where everybody is successful. It's not a society that is structured to create failures, but a society that is structured to ensure that every single human being, every single child born of humankind can be a contributor and a receiver to society. And a society that is defined by human beings who are equally empowered is a better society because it makes everybody find their space and it makes us, all of us, successful as humans. So by centering on learning outcomes, we are talking about statements of abilities that a graduate develops after completing a program. Defining learning outcomes enable clear communication of expectations, and students don't have to guess what's happening here. And we can remove the perceived subjectivity, which also, and oftentimes, it affects assessment, because when teachers have to think or educators have to think about assessment, too often they do everything as long as it's a challenge for students. But the question is, are you asking students really to reflect the outcomes as articulated, or are you asking something else? So the power of the platforms we have today is that it enables all of these things to be available, and the only thing that keep people moving are the focus they get on the outcomes. What is it that I'm going to get by going through this? So learning outcomes also provide students with vocabulary to explain what they are being transformed into. Okay, gone are those days when you say, how is the school? Great. Why great? Oh, I got everything right in class today. I answered all the recitations the teachers asked me. Now the question is, how good have you become today? So people have to be talking about becoming better humans. Coming back from school or from a training, from a conference, from a seminar, has to address the question of, how do you feel as a human being now? Are you getting better than you were before you attended it? Okay, so it's really about expanding our abilities and the qualities. Everything else is changeable. The skills will change all the time, they keep changing. The knowledge we use keep changing. Many things in the world of knowledge and technology change very, very, very fast. But when we build the human capacity, we prepare a human being to transform with society as well. Oftentimes, people can take control of the change they want to see in the world, the change they want to see in their lives. Yes, technology will change, skills will change, many things change, information change, knowledge change. So we have to have this good understanding that learning outcomes that are really very clearly articulated, they make a person build capabilities that enables them to really transfer their learning into different life situations in which they find themselves. Learning outcomes create a healthy, predictable, and dynamic learning environment. It's important to have clear expectations in learning. And with clear expectations, whether you are doing it synchronous or asynchronous, it really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, it's getting to the destination. Not so much about which path you take, but more of getting to the destination. We need to provide multiple pathways for people to get where they are going. But what matters is they get where they are going. And so learning outcomes are also useful to determine and provide educational differentiation. So this is happening so much today, where the proposals, particularly in the Philippines, for those of you attending from the Philippines, the options we are using today is on-campus or distance mode. But the idea that whether we are on campus or we are at home, the quality of learning we are receiving really has to be the same. We have to meet the outcomes. So the differentiation has to be somehow creating what we might call forced options, right? The forced choice. Forced choice means that you think what you are taking would be different, but actually it leads you back to the same destination. So we are providing choices so that people can pursue different pathways, but they'll arrive at the same destination as well. So whether someone is going to say, okay, for me, Moodle works very well for me. I don't need all the textbooks and everything else. I can manage, and all the resources are integrated here. Fine. I have seen that happen to many of my students who say, oh, sir, I want to do everything just online. I don't need to attend class. Okay, sure, no problem. But when the time comes when you ask for evidence of really learning, evidences to demonstrate that they have learned successfully, that's where you begin to say, oh my gosh, really, sometimes it's not really what kind of platform you are using, how many resources you have. Sometimes it's a matter of how seriously as a student you engage and pursue your dream in a particular direction. How much teachers facilitate that to make it a reality. So whether it's, offline, online, facilitation has to be there because that's what brings us to the destination. We need drivers and we need pilots, okay? We don't all need to be pilots, but someone else to bring us where we are going, okay? So these are the three premises of outcome-based education, which are actually beyond chronos. They are beyond time. We don't talk about time in the outcome-based philosophy, but we look at time as a flexible resource. You may need 1 hour, I may need 10 hours. You may need 20 minutes, I may need 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. What matters is we have delivered, right? We have delivered, and what matters is that we are growing, we are progressing in life. So the first principle there here is premises. All students can learn and succeed, but not at the same time, not on the same day, and not in the same way. What this means is learning has to be really proliferated in terms of pathways so that we can meet every person where they are without compromising on quality, right? Success breeds success. Once people experience success, they experience some degree of accomplishment, they are more likely to continue to accomplish more. And so part of what we should be concerned about, whether we are using platforms as solid and dynamic as what Moodlemoot is providing us and facilitating, we need to be sure that learning can produce success in the learner. Because once they get success, then they can pursue more success. And finally, schools control the conditions of success. So if you are the educator, you are the teacher, you are controlling the conditions of success, you like it or not. If you say you are not going to pass, the student will not pass. If you say you are going to fail, the student will fail. That's what it means to basically control the conditions of success. You decide how to make things successful or how to make students fail. And that's the reason why we often say when students fail, it's the teachers who fail. When students fail, it's the schools and the universities that fail. And yes, in many other fields, they have the same thinking. When a patient dies in the hospital, those who are in medical practice, they feel like they are failures, right? When a lawyer loses a case with a client, they feel they are the losers, right? So there is that sense of, because I'm controlling the conditions of success. Now, unlike the medical setting, unlike the legal setting, in the school system, we absolutely control all conditions of success, which lawyers don't control, which medical people don't control, because they can't control your heartbeat, but they can do everything they can based on their training. In school system, we have more power to control, we have enormous autonomy to control everything that happens in the learning process. And that's why we cannot underestimate this authority we have. We just need to put it to best use possible. So OBE comparing purposes is to maximize those conditions of success. If we maximize the conditions of success, that enables more people to be very successful. And therefore, controlling the conditions of success or managing, maximizing, and expanding these conditions of success is what good teachers do, is what good educators do. How can I expand conditions of success? Now, it can be things like dealing with students' behavioral attitude. It can be running after the students, trying to make sure that they stay focused. It can be any effort that you make to expand those conditions of success so that the students can indeed be successful. So this is the function of educators and school. We control conditions of success. So let us keep that in mind all the time. And ultimately, OBE's competing purposes is to send every single person fully equipped and empowered into the world, because we are not being educated to stay where we are. We are educated to be sent out, right? So any training that you take, you need to transfer that learning and make it have an impact on society. It calls you to go and apply and live out the concepts, the ideas, the values that you have picked up. But if you are not adequately prepared, you are not equipped enough, you are not empowered enough to make that impact, to make that difference on society. So in outcome-based philosophy, we expect, we work for, we dream, we aspire to ensure that every person who goes to any form of education can be fully equipped and empowered to succeed in life. Design-wise, based on that, we have kept that in every outcome-based designing, whether it's a training you are putting up, or you are putting up a program or a curriculum or a subject, a lesson, you begin by thinking about what are the culminating outcomes, serious outcomes of significance. Remove the micro skills, but the macro thing, what are the big things that have to happen? And then set high expectations, because if you have clarity of focus, but the expectations are low set, they are set on a very low point, then the quality of education can be compromised. The ability to expand human consciousness can be brought down to the mediocre level. And that's not the calling that outcome-based education has asked us to, has directed our consciousness. Then we talk about expanded opportunity. Expanded opportunity is not a window to mediocrity. Expanded opportunity is this idea of creating, expanding conditions of success in order to uplift and to challenge the learners to be at their very best all the time. So when we expand, we are not opening the window for mediocrity. We expand because we believe and we are convinced that working alongside with our students, we can really bring the very best out of them. So that's, and of course, when we move on, what we have there is the design down. So the design down means to say, I use the word front-loading curriculum. So we front-load, we put the outcomes first, we set the high standard expectations, we put in place mechanisms for expanded opportunity and support for learning success. Then we begin to design backwards. So that is how we visualize. And we do all these things simultaneously, spontaneous, because you can't just do one thing and leave out the other thing. It doesn't work that way if we have to ensure success in the outcome-based space. So, and everything we do thereafter has to be about alignment. So we want to ensure that the outcomes that we have set our minds on is what students demonstrate in their learning, is what assessment captures when it assesses, and it's something that we document when we talk about student progress. I said that all IPOs are flexible resources. They are learning experiences. So we can create a much more rich, diverse, flexible, and differentiated space. By this, I mean content and resources need to be differentiated. Processes and products, what will students demonstrate down the line, modalities of demonstrating learning, we need to differentiate that. The affect, the environment, the platform, all of these things can be different. Time, length of time, and of course, assessment. All of these things need to be differentiated if we have to keep people at their very best in terms of success. Differentiating assessment is something that I really wanted to stress here, because the conditions we are living in, people have tended to think like if you're going to use technology-driven assessment strategies, what people are thinking is to do everything in terms of multiple choice, okay? But multiple choice is low level learning. It's very low level when you look at the taxonomy. Higher order thinking and higher order skills need complex context to be demonstrated. So you can't assess a person with a multiple choice and expect that you're assessing them at the highest level. It doesn't matter how sophisticated your technology may be. It's just that it's not the right way to assess. So we can differentiate through all of these means. You can ask people to do a practical demonstration. And the systems that we have technologically can allow all of these forms to happen. Students can do all of these things. You can ask them to choose which modality do you want for me to assess you. Any of these would be very, very powerful ways to allow them to be who they authentically are and to be able to demonstrate their learning in a more authentic way rather than artificial way, which can be captured on a multiple choice instrument. So all of these are ways that you can actually consider as you frame the assessment. Okay, so that's the first part I wanted to talk about, and the whole focus is on outcomes. Therefore, the idea of chronos, time, is actually very much irrelevant. It's the time frames we put in are actually tentative. We have to be prepared to expand. So whether it's synchronous or synchronous, it's kind of a strange dichotomy that we have created. It's not a choice that has to be even treated as such. You can do both, why not? Or you can do over the other. It's not really so much an issue, but sometimes people put so much issue on that, so much that the work we need to do is often neglected because it becomes so everything reduced to simply, it's not working because it's synchronous, it's working because it's asynchronous. But the thing is, yeah, these are terminologies, and academics, they like words because it sounds intelligent, okay? But these words are misleading like this. So we have to know that learning is learning. Human beings learn by experience. Therefore, providing human beings spaces for experience is what we educate them. And those experiences can be found anywhere. Some of them are available in the online spaces or any learning space that you create. And some of them are just everyday life that we experience. We can encounter opportunities for learning, right? And we need to make sure that we do not lose such opportunities wherever they exist and they present themselves. So the second part I want to do, it's a very, very short one, is to look at how that theme intersect within the space of research. I'm a teacher of research as well. So one of those things that I've seen for a long time is that research has tended to be very much impoverished because the obsession of many educational systems is focused on outputs. So they tend to be output driven. And when, as a matter of fact, research needs to be focused on the outcomes and the impacts that society expects. So research has to be responding to the needs of humankind. And research has to be working in terms of generating best ideas, best technologies, best solutions to put us forward, to expand us as human beings. It's not really about so much of outputs, how many papers, how many paragraphs, how many pages, a lot of all that kind of stuff. So what I would like to present here is something that, you know, I invite you to take a look at this. When you find you are going to see how these materials will interact with you. I call it self-directing research. It's really about how to focus your culture of research on the outcomes and impacts that society needs. And what I mean by that is, what is research? I begin by defining research as a method of harnessing the power of evidence and ideas to confront challenges that we are always experiencing, to take inventive steps and develop solutions and create change. So the quality of research is determined by the amount of innovative ideas that it brings forward to create change. All of us are grateful to Bill Gates. His research has changed our life. It makes it possible for us to be here. And many other researchers who are really doing many things, even in terms of the vaccinations in the COVID space. You know, when we first encountered the pandemic, we were all in a panic everywhere. But thanks to God, a couple of people who have to spend sleepless nights trying to change the trajectory of humanity, they responded. And today, We have plenty of vaccinations that have come in place. We have also the cures that are being used, and many more researches that are going on. Research is not limited to those ideas, but what I would like to simply stress is we do research, okay, because we want to improve the quality of life. And so our culture of research in our schools need to really be, when you are thinking about the aim of research, why should I be researching? Why am I going to conduct the study? Ask yourself, what impact is needed? What change do I want to make? Let's work with certain verbs that are oriented towards change and transformation, because that's really what research is. So I dedicate the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi to that. I said I'm going to adapt this because Francis of Assisi is a great example of what it is to be a researcher, is to look at the troubled situation that humanity is in and to begin to contemplate how to create solutions for that. And so there are many areas where we see inefficiencies, poor performance, weaknesses, ineffectiveness, dissatisfaction. Anytime you experience that, we need to ask ourselves, can I be a response to this? Can I contribute something? So in that sense, when we look at situations like this, negative situations like that, then your purpose of research and the practice and culture of research that you have in your school, in your education model, has to be something of this type. Where there is poor intergenerational solidarity, let's improve the quality of intergenerational solidarity. You need to line up things. So if this is the problem, the purpose of research has to really address this. And in that sense, we'll stop talking about publish or perish. We'll be talking about research so that we can have a better life. It's a different philosophy altogether. So harnessing the power of evidence means identifying the needs in society. Just as we speak right now, we must be grateful to Moodlemoot Philippines, because they championed making this thing available to all of us, training every single year, bringing up ideas. They are researchers who need a lot of credit in order to look at the example of what it is to do research and to lead humanity towards betterment. So identifying the need, there's a lot that we can read about in order to just learn more about this situation, defining the challenge, inventing solutions, and creating change. So this is not about how many publications you have. It's not about, how many citations you have in the publication. That's all nonsense, because society can't become better because you are cited 10,000 times. Okay, society is suffering. All they need is solutions. They need a good life. That's all what we all need. Okay, and so to be excellent researchers in the spirit of outcome-based thinking, we have to say, I'm sorry you are suffering, but here is the solution. We can get better. I know the situation is not right, but I'm going to be part of that solution. We need to be thinking about that, and that's the orientation that I thought the space of time, the 21st century and the fourth industrial revolution is really calling us. In fact, somebody mentioned to me just 2 days ago, stop talking about fourth industrial revolution. Let's talk about fifth industrial revolution. So the space competition, right? So that's where we are. So on that note, thank you very much for listening. And I do hope that this can help you a bit to consider as we continue to design and deliver education learning in all forms of styles that we have. For those of you who want to contact me, those are my, that's the contact number. And I'll just stop sharing this. I have the details I'll put in the chat if in case you want to, there we are. You want to reach me, you can reach me on that. If you want to take a look at these 2 books, Philippine-based, you can also do that and we can get back to you. In any case, I am so grateful for this opportunity to be with this team of great educators. Thank you so much and good afternoon to all of you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Alias Sampa, for that wonderful presentation. Indeed, you are truly a great speaker, sir. So this session is now open for the question and answer portion. We have a couple of questions here. First is from Mr. Ray S. Mendanilia. If you are espousing outcome-focused research, does it mean the output-driven one is incomplete? Must the former go together with the latter in one research to consider it an acceptable product?
Very tough question. No, actually, what I really mean is from the conception, when you are thinking about something to research on, it's very important that you start by looking at the dreams and aspirations of the people around you, your community, and ask yourself, how can we improve the conditions of life around us? Now, all of us are coming from different fields of specialization, right? But in every field where you are, there are some loopholes. There is a lot of elements that need to be perfected so that society can become better, our system can work better. My thinking is that anytime you address any of those concerns seriously, you are likely to get us better than where you find us. Opportunities will open down the line. Normally, we don't know the solutions. That's why we are researching, right? We don't know. The only thing we know is that there is a problem. So identifying that particular need, that puts so much limitation on humanity. When you identify that and you begin to work on it, wherever we are going to end, it will be better than where we started. And that's why, rather than thinking about, am I going to publish, it is going to be accepted, the question more is, will this help improve society? Will this make the community better than it is, where it is currently? As long as the answer is yes, it's going to improve in this respect and in that respect, I think you are getting in the right direction if you do that.
Okay, sir, another question, sir, is there a criteria for creating instructional designs that you can share with our participants?
Oh, yes, there's quite a lot. That book that I presented is simple reading. You can check on it. It's on Amazon. My books are on Amazon, but there's a Philippine version that I put in here. Yes, there is a criteria, but the most central starting point is actually establishing your outcomes. What do we need to happen? Assuming you are teaching math or science or technology, anything else, you really need to be very clear and very specific, because knowing clearly where you want your learners to be is the basic description of how to teach and how to assess. Because where you want people to be is where you should bring them actually. It's just like a jeepney driver in the Philippines, for those of you in the Philippines, okay? One of our public transportations, when the person knows where you are going, they will stop and they will drop you there. So that's really the whole essence of it. So getting to be clear with outcomes, do not confuse them with outputs. I'm not talking about outputs. I'm not talking about activities. I'm talking about enlarging human consciousness, the human capabilities. Because outputs, inputs, and processes are things we do in the process of educating people, and they are supposed to be left in the training room. They are supposed to be left in the classroom. That's why, for some of you guys, ladies and gentlemen, who are working in elementary school and high school, the question is, why do they do that? Because they don't need them. What you need in school is to expand your abilities. When you become, for example, you are learning how to drive. When you know how to drive, you don't need the driving manual, right? When you are training to become a pilot, you don't need all the manuals, right? So the things we do in class and things we use for demonstrating learning are meant to be left in the training room. So our focus in designing has to be that we are very clear with those outcomes, and we need to have a lot of conversation with experts and practitioners. Practitioners will tell us, what does it mean to be a competent person here? What should every person have to be good at? Or what should someone always do right in this field? When we do that, we'll be able to identify what are really key important outcomes that define the course, that define the subject, because we don't need to know everything that is in any subject in any course. I don't know of anybody who knows everything on the subject matter. Nobody does that. And so we should not expect anybody to do that. But we expect people to be competent in things that we are training them to be. And what competence means is what we are going to define as we figure out what the outcomes are in what we want to teach or train people about. Yeah, so I would recommend that take time to take a look at the book. It has more details than the simple points that I can share with you at the moment. Thank you very much for that question.
Okay, so just as you mentioned, sir, Ms. Herschel posted the Google form on the chat box for those who are interested. This is for the Philippine Assisted Book Order. Okay, so we also have here, sir, a feedback from Mr. Felipe Soliera Jr. Thanks, Doc Sampa, for enlightening us with your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think that is all the time that we have for the Q&A. But please continue posting should you have questions for Dr. Sampa. And to express our gratitude to the speaker, allow me to present the Certificate of Appreciation, which reads, Nefila Web Technology Incorporated presents this Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Elias Sampa for sharing his invaluable knowledge and experience to the participants of the Moodlemoot Philippines 2022. This conference aims to bring together the Moodle community of practitioners and users to share experiences, research achievements, and innovative development using the most widely used open source learning management system, Moodle. Given this 28th day of July 2022, held virtually via Zoom video conferencing, signed by Ms. Cheryl Villaroman, MSIT President and Chief Executive Officer, Nefila Web Technology Incorporated, the only Moodlemoot partner in the Philippines. Once again, a round of applause, please, for Dr. Elias Sampa. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Please continue the job you are doing. It's fantastic. You are doing a great gift to humanity. You are helping our communities to move forward. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be with you. Thank you.